Okay. All right, so I am ready, Carolyn.
All right, you're good to go.
Good evening, and thank you for those that are joining us this evening. This is the virtual community meeting to discuss the Clifton Inn and Collina Farm special use permit and rezoning. This is a virtual meeting held via Zoom, and this meeting is being held pursuant to and in compliance with ordinance number 20-A16, an ordinance to ensure the continuity of government during the COVID disaster. And I'll introduce myself. I'm Rebecca Ragsdale. I'm one of the county staff people with the Community Development Department and the lead reviewer for the special use permit and the rezoning that's under review. Joining this is, also with us this evening is Carolyn Schaefer, and she is helping us on the technical side with the Zoom meeting. If you have any technical issues, Carolyn can assist. Also joining us is the representative for your district, Supervisor Donna Price, and then also your Planning Commissioner representative, Commissioner Rick Randolph. And then we have the applicant team, which will introduce themselves when we get to that portion of the agenda. A few reminders, we will have some brief presentations, and then we will open it up to question and answers. I'm going to give a brief PowerPoint presentation, and there, like I said, there will be a chance for questions and answers at the end of the meeting. And I'll remind you again, you may access that via, or you may participate by using the raise your hand feature. And for those that might have called in, you may hit *9. So I think that covers everything. This is my first community meeting that I've done via Zoom, so I appreciate your patience. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen to go over a few things before we turn it over to the applicant. Can everyone see that okay? The PowerPoint, I'm hearing that the presentation is showing. As mentioned, this is the community meeting that is required as part of a special use permit or rezoning process. And we like to have it early on in the review process, and that is the case with this one. The application was submitted, I believe, in February, and staff is still reviewing the application. I think we've already covered introductions and meeting format. I will go over some basics in terms of the county review process. For some of you, you may notice that this is a format and information that we cover in any of our community meetings. We adjust it according to the type of request, of course. And then the project details will be covered by the project team. I'm primarily covering some basic zoning and comprehensive plan information and county process information in my portion. And then again, we will open it up to questions and answers. This is really your first opportunity to be introduced to the project. Like I said, it's the beginning of the process, and we have all the information online in terms of the applicant submittal. And as the lead reviewer, you'll see my contact information, my email on a few of these slides. You may contact me. Another note is that the meeting is being recorded, so you may refer back to it. So don't feel like this is your only opportunity. This is really the first. And the purpose of the meeting, as I mentioned, is just share information. Pre-COVID, we might have had this in more of an open house style at Clifton, maybe even. And like I said, it's your first opportunity to learn about the project and for staff and the applicant to hear your questions and concerns. And all of your input is included in staff reports going forward that the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors would receive as this moves through the process. So the timeline, as I mentioned, it was fairly recently submitted, so we're still in the first review period, the study period, the first study period, if you will, for staff and other agencies and divisions to really take a close look at it and have discussions on it. So we're still doing that in terms of staff review. we'll have a chance to consider your comments this evening in our first set of review comments. So we share any questions and comments to the applicant in the form of a written review comment letter, and that's due to go out to the applicant on April 6th. Following that, the applicant may choose to resubmit more information, and that's often the case, and I expect possibly to be that. With this review, the applicant will let you know about their timeline, but right now it's not scheduled for any public hearings at this point in time with the Planning Commission or the Board of Supervisors. We share this slide, one of those that we'd like to let folks know about in terms of where we are in the process. So a special use permit and a rezoning is what we call a legislative review. So the governing body must act to approve it, and the legislative reviews have the lengthiest, in-depth, comprehensive process. So we're at the beginning stages of that. If this was to be approved by the board after a recommendation from the Planning Commission, it would move on into sort of the detailed plan review phase, where we would get a detailed site development plan, engineering plans, any architectural review that's needed. And that's a two-step process that is, takes a year or two. And then once that's done, you move into the building permit phase, where we would review the building permits and issue certificates of occupancy, or what we call zoning clearances, prior to a new use or expansion of a use being able to be established. So a little bit, again, a little reminder about a legislative review. We have both a special use permit under consideration and a rezoning. The first step is that staff sort of study period, if you will, that involves community development staff like myself, planners that are looking at the comprehensive plan, natural resources, parks planning. We're looking at it for zoning compliance. VDOT is also part of the review. The Albemarle County Service Authority, the Ravenna Water and Sewer Authority, the Health Department, Fire Rescue. We have historic resource comments that would be part of this. So as I mentioned, it's really an in-depth review process. And that happens before the application moves forward to the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors. So as the lead planner that was assigned to this, then I sort of help consolidate things, write things up, and usher it through the process, if you will. Special use permits are reviewed for a number of criteria, and we're looking at things in terms of the review, and we're looking at impacts to roads, water, natural resources, impacts to neighbors. That could be noise, lighting, visual. Is the use in harmony with the intent of the zoning ordinance and the comprehensive plan? Those are some of the things that will be part of the review process. You'll see this language and this kind of terminology used in staff reports and review comment letters as we move forward. In some cases, there's sort of high-level general criteria, and we pull from the comprehensive plan and the ordinance what we think is relevant. Every site is different. Backing up a little bit, special use permit uses are those that are allowed only with approval by the board. We want to consider sort of the site context that might be a use that's generally appropriate in the rural areas, but only at certain locations. And special use permits can be approved, denied, or approved with conditions. In this particular case, we're looking at a use category that does have some specific criteria in it when we're talking about historic restaurants, taverns, and inns. And again, we're looking at consistency with a comprehensive plan. But for a site like this with historic resources, we're looking at the proposed additions and improvements and their relationship and impacts to the historic resources, along with all of the other things that we would typically look at in terms of capacity for this use, in terms of infrastructure and the other impacts that I mentioned earlier. As I said, I'm going to leave the portion of the presentation that the applicant is doing to them to go over all of the specifics. They have submitted a concept plan, they've submitted a narrative, some traffic information, and perhaps a couple other things, some architectural drawings. But in general, the proposal is to increase the number of guest rooms at the Clifton Inn. Right now, there are 15 guest rooms spread on between the Manor House, what's called the Livery, and some of the garden cottages at the Clifton property. We reviewed a special use permit in 2002 that allowed that increase. And then they're allowed a 52-seat restaurant. And there's an overall cap on the number of people or capacity for events, restaurant and guests to 200 people within existing structures at Clifton. And then they're allowed to use a tent for events that has typically been set up on the tennis courts. At Collina Farm, there's approval for 5 guest rooms to be offered in the existing farmhouse. So the proposal would be an increase of 25 additional rooms at the inn to a total of 40, including within existing structures and then some new structures and additions that have been proposed. I don't believe anything would change with the restaurant in terms of its seating capacity. There would be an events building, a new events building proposed of up to 5,000 square feet, which would allow events of up to 75 people. And then there would be the addition of primitive camping sites. I don't have the exact number in terms of the campsites at this point. And then Collina, the 5 guest rooms would remain. There's a relocated entrance proposed. There is a proposal for 16 cabins, if you will. I think there's 4 structures shown on the plans with 4 units each, a relocated entrance, and then a larger event space over at Collina of 10,500 square feet, allowing up to 300 people in terms of capacity. And again, we have the primitive camping, or what's referred to as glamping sites, as part of the proposal. Now, as part of the review process, staff is going to be asking a lot of questions. We won't have the answers to all of your questions this evening, but we want to get them on the table, and the applicant will probably address some of the things that we've already heard in emails from you all in terms of your concerns. Just for those that might not be familiar with the site, or just a reminder that it is 4 properties that are under review with the special use permit and rezoning, starting at the corner with 250 Richmond Road, and then North Milton with Collina, and one of the Clifton properties being located across from Stone Robinson. And then they go all the way down, or excuse me, the properties go all the way down to Randolph Mill Lane at the Ravenna River, where the Milton Boat Launch is. And it's 94 acres total. Right now, all of the facilities are primarily located at Clifton Inn, or the Clifton Inn property sort of central to your screen. Just have a couple more slides before I turn it over to the applicant. In terms of zoning, the existing zoning of 3 of the properties is rural areas, and that allows for agriculture, residential. It also allows for historic inns by special use permit. And then a portion of it in green, or turquoise, if you will, the property in the middle, 7923F, is zoned planned residential development. So under this proposal, it would be rezoned to rural areas so that they could then get the special use permit to cover that property as well, to have in uses associated with Clifton and Collina on that property. That's why we have 2 separate application numbers. You'll see the SP number and starting with the ZMA number on a lot of the slides and information that you see. In terms of the comprehensive plan, which is our guide for land use decisions, all of these properties are designated rural area. Again, primarily recommendations for agriculture, limited residential uses, and then any additional uses in the rural area being those uses that are either directly supportive of agriculture, or in this case might be supportive of historic preservation goals. And then also we have some statements in our comprehensive plan about supporting tourism and having lodging of the right scale and proportion in the rural areas. And then I noted that there is one parcel, it's the Clifton properties are extend over to a portion of the village of Ravenna, which is within the development area. The development areas are those identified areas of the county where we might expect more density, commercial uses, those areas to be served by water and sewer, and to have more infrastructure. One of the questions that I've gotten is about water and sewer service to the property. I believe the applicant may cover this, but the county has a policy where typically the development areas are given priority in those areas that we want served by water and sewer. It's our growth management tool. That's where we want to encourage development. And then properties in the rural area are given privileges to water and sewer on a case-by-case basis, if you will. So Clifton, there's a couple Clifton properties. The existing buildings may be served by water, but the plan is for any additional capacity that's needed to be addressed through wells. And these properties are not served by public sewer. Again, the timeline, we're very early in the process. And then there's my contact information again, my email if you need it. And I think I have covered enough, and I will stop sharing and hand it over to Kelsey and the rest of the Clifton Inn team that's here.
Thanks for that presentation, Rebecca. I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Awesome. So good evening, everyone. My name is Kelsey Schlein. I'm a planner with Shimp Engineering. I'm here tonight representing Clifton Inn LLC, the property owners. And also with me from the project team tonight are two of the property owners, Elliot Estes and Charles D'Angelo. Justin Shimp, the project engineer, and Valerie Long, an attorney with Williams Mullen, is also on the call tonight. We're all available to answer your questions after we provide this introduction to the proposal for you. So Rebecca already provided a good overview about where we are, and we did send about 130 notifications to nearby residents. And so as nearby residents, you're likely pretty familiar with where this is. So we're looking at 94 acres right at the intersection of Route 250 and North Milton. Stone Robinson is right across the street. We have 64 further north along the site. The Luckstone plant is nearby as well. And I will touch on, so the special use permit request currently, these 10 acres here are subject to the special use permit request. However, all 4 properties are under current ownership. And in looking to expand events to the Collina property, which is the 25 acres right here, we are requesting to expand the limits of the special use permit to cover all 94 acres. And so I think it is important to note that although the limits of the special use permit will expand, the limits of the development and where structures are proposed on the site isn't going to be much different than what is currently on the site today. And that is just about 10 or so acres of really formal programmed areas that currently exist around the Clifton site and that currently exist around the farmhouse at Collina that will be dedicated to areas for future structures and parking on the site as well. So next slide. Next slide is not loading. Just going to share my screen with you one more time to see if I can get it to go to the next slide. Perfect. Okay, so the Clifton Inn is a historic country inn that has guest rooms and various historic structures throughout the property, a restaurant that is open to the public and events. The Clifton has been operating as a legal inn since the 1980s and has been hosting events for a number of years in conjunction with the inn and restaurant use. Throughout the history of the property's operation as an inn, there have been multiple amendments to the special use permit that allows the operation on the inn as the inn use has been expanded over the years. Charles and Elliot acquired the property in 2017. And so kind of just continuing that modification to the special use permit to serve the viability of the business and to kind of move this in operation kind of forward consistent with the vision of the new owners. We're requesting a modification to the special use permit. So the property is part of the Virginia Landmarks Register and the National Register of Historic Places. It's held those designations between since 1988 and 1990 and 1989, respectively. The owners really see themselves as stewards of this property and have every intent of upholding these designations throughout the proposed expansion process. This expansion opportunity is certainly an opportunity to allow for more people to come to the site and enjoy the historic resources. In 2017, the property owners, when they acquired it, they did quite an extensive renovation to the interior and upgrades, maintenance upgrades to the property. And I think if you go to visit it, you can see their commitment to really kind of bringing the property up to all that it can be. So going over the zoning history, and Rebecca briefly touched on this, we are requesting a special use permit amendment as well as a rezoning. This parcel here is actually zoned planned residential development and is approved for 7 development lots. So concurrent with the special use permit request, we're requesting to downzone this property and vacate those development rights, rezoning it to rural areas, and having that property contribute to the overall historic inn and restaurant use. The proposed expansion. So currently on Collina, the proposal is for it to add 16 additional guest rooms for a total of 21 guest rooms. And on the site here, this is the proposed additional guest rooms are slated to take shape in kind of small footprint, kind of interesting cabins of sorts in this area. The existing 5 rooms are in the historic Collina farmhouse here. And this is the general location of the proposed 10,500 square foot event structure. Kind of the orange that you see here is just a general location showing of probably where some potential glamping sites could go. And further on in the presentation, I have some images to provide some context to what we're referring to when we're saying glamping on this property. Additionally, the Clifton Inn is proposing a 25 guest room expansion as an addition to one of the historic garden structures that exists on the property. And so that addition would kind of frame the existing croquet courtyard and accommodate 25 rooms in that proposed structure. The event structure, and something that we're hoping to use as kind of a multi-purpose space to serve as for a spa area to accommodate smaller events, is proposed over here on where the former tennis courts are. And if you've been out to the property in the summertime, Clifton typically has a tent erected in this location. And so the proposed structure there would more so just being established some more permanence in a structure in that area rather than the temporary tent that they've been using for the past several years. Just highlighting a few community benefits there. Clifton Inn in non-COVID years and pre-expansion is typically has 30 full-time employees, 35 part-time employees. After the expansion, they're hoping to add an additional 13 full-time employees and additional 13 part-time employees. And then the last bullet here, just speaking to taking advantage of the 94 acres that we have here and focusing the events more on the Collina property to alleviate some of the taxes that occur on the property, on the historic property, when if there were to be larger events accommodated near the historic main house. And so by moving the events over to the Collina property, providing parking on that, that just allows for the inn operation to continue to service guests, to continue to operate the restaurant, and for the entire property not to be taxed and compromised to host a single event. So that is one main driver behind this request, is just allowing for these entire 94 acres under the property's ownership to work together so that the historic in use can continue to operate while a simultaneous event is happening on the property. This is just going over into more detail, a little closer up, the proposed expansion. And down here, this is what, when we're referring to glamping, this is kind of what we're talking about. So they would be structures, kind of platforms secured to the ground with a canvas tent on top. We're just very much exploring this idea right now, but think that it would be a great complement, especially seasonally. These are typically where we've seen these elsewhere in the country. This is somewhat of a luxury product. And so although space-wise, they have a light footprint and we could fit quite a few of them, just as far as viability and economics and marketing-wise, these probably won't have a significant number of these. There will probably be, 10 or so, because since they, just to keep them feeling kind of secluded and exclusive, and just allowing there to be space between these structures. Just wanted to briefly touch on traffic. So with the Collina expansion, the current entrance would be closed and would be moved further down North Milton Road to meet VDOT entrance spacing standards from the intersection of Route 250 and North Milton. So that is, I think, would be a significant improvement in that area. Currently, the existing entrance location is just, it doesn't meet spacing standards and is far too close to this intersection. So with this proposal, we'd be moving that further down. And as far as from a traffic impact standpoint, these events, hotels, inns, and fine dining restaurant establishments, although we are requesting an expansion, and with that comes more trips, these trips do not occur in the peak hour, which is that 4 to 6 p.m. time. Everybody's coming home from work. That's 7 to 9 a.m. time when everybody's going to work. So there's about 7,000 trips on North Milton, and considerable amount of trips on 250, especially in the mornings and evenings, that line of traffic coming to and from town. However, with these events, most would be occurring, if not all, at off-peak hours. And so the additional trips wouldn't be contributing to the times where there is background congestion. I'm happy to talk about traffic more, because I'm sure we'll have more questions about that. That's all that I have for you, and our team is available for any questions from the community. Thank you.
I may ask that Carolyn let us know if anyone has their hand raised, or if she'll be helping facilitate us through these presentations, facilitate us through any questions or comments that folks have so far. I see a couple hands raised.
All right, first we have Jan McCarthy. Jan, please unmute yourself and you can start at any time.
Hi, everybody, and thanks so much for the opportunity here and for your presentation. I really appreciate it. I do have a couple of questions. Can you tell me what type of events are planned for these event facilities that you're proposing are probably going to happen at off-peak hours? What kind of things are planned for the 300 people that would be in this building, for example?
Sure. I mean, primarily weddings. That's the main events that Clifton currently hosts, and so that would be the primary clientele for the larger events.
Okay, so that's the new building that's planned for over at Collina Farm, is that larger facility over there. And the other question, this would probably be for county staff. Doesn't PRD zoning limit commercial use so that if a property were rezoned from PRD to RA, then the commercial use limits would be removed? Is that a fair assumption?
So PRD is primarily for residential uses. We do allow a few other uses, I believe maybe office or I'd have to check the ordinance. A few non-residential uses that are supportive of residential, and I can send you, I think I have your email, I can send you links to the ordinance afterwards. But once you change the zoning of the property, you fall under the new zoning district, which in this case would be the rural areas. So the property can ask for any of the by right uses. They can seek a special use permit for any of the special use permit uses that are available in the rural areas,
Sure.
including the, excuse me, including the historic end use.
Sure. And are you eventually going to, I don't want to take too much time, are you eventually, someone in the panel going to address the environmental or concerns like, you know, I don't know if Albemarle County requires lighting to be shielded, for example. Fairfax County does now, that all the additional lighting to light the facilities and the parking and everything be shielded to help protect the night sky in the neighborhood. The additional parking, you know, I'm looking for the size of the additional parking. Are you going to make this permeable or impermeable? Is this all going to be asphalt? So, you know, I'm looking at the number of roofs that are added and asphalt and how, you know, how much acreage of trees are coming down and, you know, replanting and all those kinds of things that I put in my memo to Rebecca. Will this be addressed at some point, or is there some place that I can find this information at a later date or without taking too much time right now?
Yes, those are good questions, and they are considerations at the special use permit stage of review. And then also a lot of that is covered through the water protection ordinance, the zoning ordinance. A more detail would come at the site plan process. Short answer is yes, we will, you know, be looking at all aspects of this project at this stage. You know, in terms of adequate parking for rural area properties, we don't want there to be too much parking because we don't want that added impervious surface if it's not needed. Lighting is a consideration. We do have the dark skies policy in our comprehensive plan. And then also we have a lighting ordinance. We use the term full cutoff. You know, I can follow up with you on more of the details and send you some links so you can, I think you might've mentioned you were trying to find some of these answers yourself. But these will all be things that we consider through the process.
Great. Thank you. Thank you all very much. I appreciate your considering my concerns. Thank you.
Next, I have Bill Weekly. Bill, please unmute yourself and you may start at any time. Bill, you're gonna have to unmute yourself.
Okay, we're good now.
Okay.
Bill and Lori Weekly. We live at 3181 Shannon Drive, which when you look at the map there that shows Collina Farm, we the little white blob just right across from it. You know, it's probably less than 100 yards by the way the crow flies over to where some of those structures are going to be. So I have some concerns. One is the water supply. Now, I know you said public water for some of the stuff at Clifton in some of the buildings, but I heard something like 16 cabins or something in a big event building that could hold up to 300 people. That's a lot of water consumption. My father-in-law, when he built this place here in '59, had to go through 3 wells around the properties to find enough water supply for this house. So I do know that water is in short demand. So that is a big concern if they're going to draw on the groundwater that all of us over here are using. And I think everybody in this area is using well water. The other concern is with as many people that we're having is the possibility of noise pollution. And I would also add into that, when you are at, well, when you got the cabins full, maybe you got the event building full, what are those people going to do for entertainment, the ones that are staying over? All you got there is a little stream at the bottom of the lake. I mean, what are they going to do to occupy themselves? I know you got to kind of do a little guessing here, but I can tell you, I've been out in front of my little shed there. It goes down the hill towards Collina, and I picked up all kinds of little golf balls that apparently they've been using my property at some point in time for a drive range. And, you know, I'm concerned about that stuff.
And the enclosure of the building. The building, is it going to be enclosed?
Excuse me.
The building, is it going to be enclosed?
Oh, yes. The event building, I don't think, I didn't get a lot of details on the event building, the one on the Collina farm, the big one. Whether that's going to be enclosed, and that concerns us whether that holds down the sound. I know they've held tent events out there for weddings and things like that. You know, with noise coming from those things, I didn't complain because it wasn't that big a deal, wasn't that many of them. But if we're going to do, or y'all going to do the event stuff, you possibly may have something there every night of the week. You know, and noise could be a real big concern to us. So we would like some details on that building and how you're going to, you know, keep the noise down. And as the other lady came in, the lighting, that's all a concern too. Hopefully there's something that won't be like floodlights all over the place. Did you have anything else? I guess that kind of throws our concerns out there, and we'd like to hear as the project develops how you will handle those concerns. Thank you.
Thank you all very much for your comments. I will definitely work to have, as we go through this review process, we'll have you know, more information on the items that I perhaps can't speak to super specifically at this point in time. As far as the building, I do know that you know, it is the intent for that to be an all season, all year structure. And so with that being the case, it would be enclosed. And as noise being a concern, we hear you on that, and you know, the county has brought up that that's a concern to them as well. We don't have a sound management plan worked out at this point, but that is certainly something that is addressed through special use permit conditions as we kind of work to evaluate our impacts from noise moving forward.
All right, next we have Lori Hackney. Lori, go ahead and unmute yourself and you can start at any time.
Good evening. My name is Lori Hackney, and I am here speaking on behalf of our family here at Shadwell Station Lane. We're directly across from Collina Farm. My father, Robert Mickey, and our family, we've owned this land for 64 years. We've worked hard to maintain it as a rural farm, and we are looking to pass it down to, it's being passed down to myself and my daughter and my sister. Over the years, we've seen a lot of development and change from Freebridge to Glenmore in regard to residential infrastructures and business. Some of it's been good, some of it's been bad for us residents on the east side of Pantops. The concerns that we have for Clifton, mainly for Collina Farm, are as follows. I got about 3 points, they'll be quick. They've touched on some is noise. Currently, when there are events, we can hear everything going on at Collina. I can hear conversations in the parking lot. I can hear the music. I can hear who's getting announced. And that's not having your structure there now. Once that 10,500 square foot event structure is put up, that holds 300 people, and the additional accommodations and the noise and the disruptions will increase. Shutting down the amplified music will not shut down the conversations or the socialization that goes on while the people are on Collina property. There's no barriers to stop the sound. Even with 250 between the two of us, the sound carries. Our farm is not allowed or not able to plant trees along the 250 fence line because there is no property really due to the increase of the 250 road. Item number 2 is the parking lot proposed at Collina. Currently, we can see clear into the house, clear into the side of the road, from my dad's house to my house to our horse barn to the creek. It's wide open, even when the trees. So once you change and build this construction, this 10,500 square foot structure, and you do the parking lot and all of the landscaping pieces, we will be looking into everything over there and seeing everyone. There are no barriers. So the rural character for us, and our land also is historic, just not registered. We were part of Edge Hill Farm. So all of this land is historic. We lose our rural character and the rural feeling once this is built. Under your plan, under the section of character of nearby area unchanged, you're incorrect. This is not by industry. Luckstone's behind Stone Robinson. It surrounds, your plan will have Shadwell Estates, Glenmore Farms, and other individual farm owners like ourselves that are surrounding your expansion. During the events, the school is closed, but all of us residents have to come home. And whether it's Monday, Tuesday, Friday, Sunday night, we will be seeing and hearing is the traffic, which I'm not going to jump on because I did some research. I saw the petitions. I know about Breezy Hill, Rivanna Village. I've been looking at all of that and watching what's going on. And I know the 4 lanes eventually coming through. So the traffic, there will be some changes in regards to your deliveries, the service vehicles coming in and out, and then your staff. So I'm not going to touch most on that because that's pretty much already out there for everyone. So I want to thank you and appreciate your time for allowing us to speak. We just ask that you really take all this into consideration, that the homeowners who live here, we moved here for a reason, for the rural. And we're all about supporting historic and we're all about the tourism, but also not at the cost of us losing that feel where it starts. Thank you.
Next, I have Chris Hawk from the Piedmont Community, Environmental Community. Chris, please unmute yourself and start talking.
Good evening. This is Chris Hawk with the Piedmont Environmental Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. We just had a few questions. So the first is, will the Stone Robinson school parking arrangement continue?
Oh, sorry, Chris, I didn't.
Feel free to answer.
Oh, okay, perfect. Yes, it is the intent for that to continue. We've provided a preliminary letter from Stone Robinson to county staff with our submittal, and we'll be formalizing that more as this process moves forward.
Okay, thank you for the answer. I think just one of our general concerns is that generally the school recreation facilities are typically included in the Parks and Rec services. And if for some reason there was an event that overlapped with, say, a baseball game at the elementary school, there would be concerns and parking capacity and not allowing the general public to use public facilities. Our second question is, what is the current sewer style and what is its capacity?
So the current sewer is an on-site conventional drain field, and if the proposed expansion would warrant an expansion to that existing system or the construction of a new system. So we worked through some preliminary soils work, and likely in the future that will be it'll probably be an on-site shallow drip system to service the proposed expansion.
Great. I was not expecting an answer that well defined, so thank you for that. At what point, and this may be more for the county, but also interested in your answer here, is at what point would a roundabout be warranted at the intersection of Route 250 and Milton Road? Just, considering if there was an event that coincided with school letting out on a weekday, I could imagine there would be a very long backup at the intersection there.
That's a big question. I'm sure if we had VDOT here, I'm sure they could weigh in on that, about at what point a roundabout would be warranted. There's already a light, and so typically in a lot of situations, roundabouts serve as great alternatives to lights. So I'm sure potentially just for volume of traffic, a roundabout would work well there. But as far as the traffic affiliated with this specific request warranting any traffic improvements, that isn't the case from the trip generation for this particular use.
Okay, thank you for your answer. And I'm not suggesting that a traffic circle is needed. It's just a question of wanting to understand, what impacts could exist if, all of the things were occurring at once.
Sure.
And then lastly for this evening, with Hertz Pond sharing its shorelines with multiple property owners that are not associated with your proposal, is there mitigation proposed to protect noise, light pollution on adjoining landowners? And then similarly, are there any concerns about environmental impacts to both Hertz and the Rivanna River if there is a sewer failure?
That's a great question, and Justin, if you heard that and you can weigh in on just any kind of overarching big theme and any environmental concerns from a on-site sewer failure.
Sure, I'll start with the sort of simple ones are related to the sort of construction. Because we will engage in construction, we will have a VSMP permit, which will trigger the 100-foot stream buffers and all those things off the edge of the lake. So there will be a buffer requirement enforced as part of the county's policy. That includes a buffer for any septics as well. So that, and in light pollution wise, we all know there's a full cutoff light requirements in the county, and there would be an analysis of that in the site plan phase to make sure we don't have light pollution on adjoining properties. The sewer, I don't know if there's a particular plan that's sort of something that the systems do not fail often anymore. They're designed with a reserve. So essentially, if you start to see a problem, there's additional land already laid out to fix it. These are, not uses. It's not someone's house, right? Where if you live in your home, your drain field starts to fail, well, you can't just necessarily pack up and move. but this is an event space. So if there is a problem with that, and it's unlikely there would be, you simply would shut down the events for a period of time to fix the system before anything new would resume. Now, these kind of systems don't really have catastrophic failure, but rather sort of slowly begin to show problems. And if they do, you would just simply stop the use and correct it with the additional land that was set aside per the health department regulations.
Well, thank you all so much for your thoughtful answers this evening. Compared to many of the other similar uses proposed in the county, we think this one has a much better potential location, but we are concerned about a few issues that may need to be mitigated. And thanks again for your thoughtful answers, and have a great evening.
Thanks, Chris.
And that is all I have. At this time, nobody else has their hand up.
Okay, I guess that would be last call for those that were able to join us. Thank you. If anyone else has thought of anything, if you needed to put your hand up, we can allow a couple minutes for that. I don't have anything else from the staff perspective at this point. Just a reminder, we will thoughtfully consider all of your good feedback and questions during the review comments and sort of what I started calling the staff study period. And then that'll carry forward to the Planning Commission and the board as this moves through the process. And I'm available, email or phone. I'd like to go out and visit the property. I think we've been exchanging emails across the road to look at that visibility as well. So I don't have anything else. I don't know if the applicants have anything else before we wrap up, or if anyone else needed to say anything. Like I said, there's no additional meetings scheduled at this time. We'll definitely let people know how to stay engaged throughout the process as things move forward.
The Weeklies have their hand up again.
Okay, Mr. Weekly, you're muted. No,
Okay.
you're unmuted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, one other question I had, and I don't know that you can give me any answers right now, but if this goes through to a construction phase, what kind of disruption are we looking at in the road service over there, the dust in the area? I mean, is this a major dig out construction stuff or what? That's something I would like explained, as we go on. I know you probably can't tell us now. Thank you.
I can give a preliminary answer to that question, at least, because as Kelsey noted earlier, the site's sort of already developed. Where the event space sits in a sort of already cleared zone that's part of the farm. So there's no mass excavation of any sort planned for this. So this is the construction is probably maybe 3 or 4 months on the structure itself, but there would not be any need for great earth moving or expecting a lot of dust. Keeping in mind that the inn will need to operate as it does during this work. So it's intended to have a light footprint as far as construction goes on everybody around. Just by the nature of it. So I hope that helps some. There will be a site plan phase, and before things go to construction, you can speak with the county engineers and reviewers, and they can tell you more details. But in general, this is not a significant construction project.
All right, is there anything else we need to do, Carolyn, to close? Glenn, again, my disclaimer, this is my first community meeting over Zoom. I've done some planning commission and board meetings, but I just don't want to make sure I'm not forgetting anything.
No,
Thank you
you're
all for
done.
joining us.
Yeah. I will post the recording tomorrow morning on the county calendar, and you can review it then.
All right, thank you, Carolyn.
You're welcome. Bye, everybody.
Well,
Great, thank you all.